Joe from Virginia, $5. Love the show. It was great to see you in Delaware. Havre de Grace 5 will ride again.
Oh, thank you, Joe. I didn't realize one of the Havre de Grace 5 was there.
Should have said something to you.
Maybe I can't remember if he mentioned it or not, but I apologize for not. The Havre de Grace 5, we would have done our secret handshake and everything had I realized. I'm sorry.
I want to know what that handshake is so bad.
You'll never know. It's too bad.
I know.
I also noticed that Craig had shown a chat earlier, so Mr. Crab, thank you for the compliment.
Oh, what was that?
30 minutes ago.
What did he say?
It said he enjoyed David Collins' live stream the other night.
Oh, well, I really liked it as well. I do think, David, you got a great voice for that, a great tone, cadence, like something like that, playing chess late at night. That could be very soothing for people, I think.
Oh, perfect. Well, I enjoy doing it by myself. Maybe it was a little distracting. I was yelling about anybody around me the next 24 hours. I was yelling about that game. I could go over. It was turn 19. I was very attached to that game, and I threw it all away. But it may be something that I do live in the future.
Oh, good. Good.
Always yell at people.
Next, David, would you like to talk about a gentleman named Tom Myers? Are you familiar with him?
I'm growing more and more familiar every day. In fact, even when I was on WATP, we had talked about Tom Myers.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, when you guest hosted this program a few weeks ago, I think you talked about Tom, and it seemed like you were almost a fan of his. Am I assessing that correctly?
I love a joke writer.
I imagine you do. Well, it's funny you say that, David, because today what we are going to take a listen to is Adam Thoreau, good friend of the show, WATP fan of the Blind Mike Project, I believe. Every once in a while, Adam Thoreau slips something across my desk, just as confidential on it, and I have to pour through his findings. And he's like, you're going to want to take a look at this.
Real quick, before we do move on from Chris D'Elia, there is a last second super chat from Nick West for $2. Says Chris is sniffing, quote, "My grandmother has breast cancer."
Yes. But then right after that, he's like, "All righty, gang. I'll be hitting the road."
And Hack Ride's paying for this comment, even though I've been putting them up the whole time. Love David Collins on the show. # forgived Electra, DJ Electra.
Oh, she's forgiven. Hackride finds it very funny to misspell your name, David. Does that bother you at all?
It's becoming a trend even in my comment section, so it might just be something we have to live with.
Yeah, so Tom Myers, David, you say you like a good joke writer. Well, here's what's interesting. Our buddy Adam Thoreau found Tom Myers on a podcast where they analyze jokes. It's called, like, Did That Really Happen? Or something like that.
That's what I was about to ask you about this whole podcast. Did that really happen? I would very much love to see that.
Well, it did. And it's very difficult to find for some reason. Like, Craig had to pull, it was on some weird website that we couldn't download it from. It was a whole pain in the ass.
Yes.
But basically the premise of the show is it's like, I think this episode was only like 17 minutes long, 19 minutes maybe. And they take a joke from a legendary comedian like a Tom Myers, and they say, did this really happen? So I think we're going to hear the joke first, right?
Yep. First one's the joke.
So this is from, I believe, Pitchforks, Torches, and Other Random Thoughts.
Yeah, we played this on something.
I think we did a whale bonus about Tom Myers, I think.
That's right. Is that what it's called? Whale.
Wow, I do that all the time. That's how my phone reads it to me if I put in WAYL.
I remember when you were pissed at first when I would just type WAYL. You're like, oh, is this a thing? I've never heard that.
Yeah, it just reads it to me that way. But yeah, that's what the kids are calling it.
I like it.
Why are you laughing? Bonus. We talked about Tom Myers, and I think we played this joke. But for those of you that aren't familiar, it's a Myers classic. It's one of my favorites, where he talks about a gift he got for his birthday from his parents.
I just turned 30, and my parents decided to go ahead and take me out to dinner. It was after the dinner. My father decided to show me this gift he had gotten for me. It was like, you're going to thank me. This will be a good investment for me, and you'll really appreciate this. So I'm like, okay, well, we've all got to get
this closer, by the way.
See it. So, okay, we all in the car, we're driving. I notice we're driving a while. We go ahead and we pull into a cemetery. It's like, I remember going to this cemetery before. I mean, we went ahead and pulled up to this little plot, and we all got out, and I'm just sort of looking around. Where are we going? And my dad stops and says, all right, here you go. I'm looking around. It's a little bit dark. I don't see anything. Like, what? So gets out a flashlight and shines it. And I suddenly remembered where I was. Like, this is, I've been to the cemetery plot many times before. It's like my dad's grandparents are there. My dad's parents are there. He's got his, he's going to be buried there. He's got a tombstone set up. It's got his name on it. It's got his name, his stuff on it. And right in front of that, a tombstone. My name. My date of birth. And that nice, big, empty space. For you know what.
Wow.
Dad?
Ugh.
Great punchline.
I asked for a GPS.
That's a callback.
Yep.
That sounded like an adult, you know. And I can imagine this smart-ass thing will kick in 0.1 miles. Fall 6 feet.
It's a very famous laugh you're hearing.
Stavi. I do enjoy the GPS would be like, dude, you're not even close to the right plot. In 0.1 miles, you'll find it. Really,
There's so much about it that doesn't work. It's also the closer to his entire set. But it's a terrible joke for so many reasons. But the one thing it did feel about Tom that like this was a real moment maybe between his parents. It doesn't make any sense that they would allow a tombstone that's not filled out yet on the burial plot. I don't think that's how it works.
well, I did bring this up. My grandmother's is on a tombstone with no end date right now.
Would you bring her there? He misbehaves.
No, we have like a family plot. There's like 5 people in it, and hers is on a tombstone. And it
That's
says
very
name.
daunting.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know.
grandma exposes any of your secrets. You show her where she's going.
Yeah, be like, hey, you know, right there.
I
How
see.
many people before it becomes a plot to a pile? 5 people.
Just shoving a conies in there.
Here, I was expecting this joke. I thought I wanted a GPS, not a. And my dad thought, oh, I got you a grave plot spot or something. You know, maybe that was going with GPS. But Tom Myers is very old school. He ascribes by the same thing many other comedians do, where you know you got to make them laugh, but at the end you got to make them cry.
Also, the big difference between Tom and my grandmother is my grandmother's 86 years old, and I think he was like 30.
He said he was 30. Yeah,
30th
this is like
birthday.
10 years ago, 11 years ago.
So it's like, you know, you have a lot of life left. We hope.
Well, so another part that's interesting about that is like I took that joke from the podcast, like how they played it on the podcast.
Mhm.
So you're only hearing that joke, and I don't think this podcast has a ton of listeners, but let's pretend a lot of people are checking it out, don't know who Tom Myers is. They're hearing that joke for the first time. It ends in a callback that no one understands. So they're just like, here's the joke as it is. You can judge for yourselves. And then this podcast is predicated on like, is this a real story? And so that's what Tom explains here, I guess.
So, Tom, did that really happen? Yes, it did. Well, to an extent. But that's normally the way it goes. So
This, by the way, that's
really
the whole podcast is like the most that could happen is the comedian's like, no, I made that up. And then that's kind of the end of the podcast. Or the comedian's like, yeah, basically, but I added a few things.
You say you downplay the significance, but don't forget this is how Hassan Minhaj got himself in trouble.
That's a good point. That's a good point, David. Yes. If the world would change if Tom Myers was lying about this. So I'm glad that it's based on some amount of truth.
Yeah, like he could have went with the Louis C.K. approach, like we just talked. I think it's not out for free yet, but when he's like, "Yeah, I was at a bar. Doesn't matter where, because I'm lying."
Right.
But let's continue this here.
to have a birthday dinner with my parents. And at this dinner, my father did offer me a spot in his in the family plot. It's at a cemetery.
Offer me a spot,
I
like
live
you're
in.
getting into a country club.
But it was a timeshare.
Want me to put your name on the list?
Tom, we got an opening for you. We could bury you here when you die alone.
You have to get cremated just so you can fit.
That's a good point. They can't give him a plot for a future wife. He has to be buried away from his future spouse.
No matter what, even if Tom develops skills with women, he's gonna be buried next to mom and dad.
His parents just know. You're gonna be right here, buddy.
The way they sleep at night, he's in between mother and father.
Maryland, US of A. And that was about that was where the actual story ended. And then what with my creative...
And then the Tom Myers madness ensued.
Did you hear that? He legitimately said, my creative writing skills.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Go back because I don't want to talk over that. But here's where the mad scientist starts mixing his concoctions.
Story ended. And then what with my creative writing skills, I
like Mark Twain
made up this whole segment where my family takes me to the actual grave site where I've been before, because because my grandmother's buried there, my great grandparents are buried there, I have a great aunt buried there.
See?
And there's
all the rage.
2 additional plots, and I'm the only one in my...
It's a who's who of Myers elite.
Yeah, I'm just like Tom Myers, dude. Family plot and everything.
Hasn't been married or has kids. So it's... If there's anybody who's well deserving of that grave spot, it's me.
Oh.
So I made
Tom, you were 30.
Oh shit.
Your parents thought there's no way he has a family of his own. Let's bury him with great aunt Trudy.
And he thinks he deserves it.
I've worked all my life for this.
Dang Lizard, €5. What? You're telling me that dude didn't really have a bong hit transplant?
Now he hasn't addressed that yet. Don't worry. I like that this guy, the guy hosting this podcast, poured through his act and was like, "Wait a second, this burial plot story. There has to be more to this."
Monologue about how my parents take me to the grave site, and there's already a tombstone there with my name on it, my date of birth, and that nice big empty spot where the date of death goes.
Did it say love to laugh underneath?
A lifetime of laughter. But that, like, the story itself, this is a podcast that's 17 minutes long. It could have been what we just heard. It could have been 3 minutes.
That's it.
Because it's just him going like, yeah, pretty much. But then I added some horse shit around it and got no laughs from it. It was a boring story. I was able to make it insufferable.
Let's go to the next one here.
What? Like, if people... I have kind of a cult underground, like, cult following. So if people find out...
Tom, it was us. It was me and Justin Trudell and Joe in Virginia. You asshole. It's not a cult following. It's people. Here's what's weird about Tom is, like, he's embraced the fact that he has this cult following, but will not give Nick Mullen any credit for it.
0.
Like, the only reason people know your name, Tom, is Nick Mullen.
And I don't know if you just heard that clip. That podcast was there supporting you on top of it.
You dickhead. Do you know our history with Tom Myers, David? Do you know why he's a rival of ours?
A rival? I thought you were a fan. I understood you went to his show. You've talked about with Dat Fan. I caught up a little bit on that, but I don't understand. Do you have any interaction? I've talked a little bit. I've tried to interact with this Tom Myers. He defers you to a fake person, so it's very tough to have any go back and forth.
It's a very real
you
person.
Say that. It's interesting you say that because we had the same issue. Hackride tried to book Tom Myers, and Tom basically told him to go fuck himself. And then when he found out the show we were, started going after us for making fun of Dat Fan. So he chose an allegiance to Dat Fan over us.
Oh, that's fair. He has a great career in comedy.
It's not fair, David.
It's not fair at all.
We were his supporters.
Comedians should stick together, I believe.
All right. Well,
Fair
fair
point.
enough.
Fair point.
It might become a pilgrimage site. It might become like Mecca, like how there's like
it was
leave.
5 of us.
Havre de Grace is, a mecca.
Yeah, there were 5 of us there, Tom. It wasn't. I don't know if it was Mecca.
The comedy mecca, Havre de Grace.
My God, our lives did change that night in some ways. So I'll give him that.
Stuff at like Jim Varney, the guy who did all this movie.
Oh, this is where he gets crazy. Listen to what he's about to say. So he's Jim Varney's the guy that does the Ernest movies, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So like Ernest does Christmas and all that shit. Tom's saying he's kind of a figure in comedy, just like that, where this is going to be, this is going to be a tourist attraction, his gravesite one day.
Like who knows what the hell they're gonna leave on my grave? Like they leave like cans of Sprite and like beige ball caps at his grave site. Who knows what the hell they're gonna leave on mine?
He thinks he's gonna be like Gigi Allen. Come on.
They're just bongs.
People will be
His
dropping off
gravesite.
their note and joke books on the grave spot.
Whatever in Bong Hit Transplant, whatever he said, I forget, it was like a banana, like Skittles or whatever the fuck the guy was buying.
Yeah, an old rotting banana, generic brand fruit punch.
Yeah, that'll all be left at his grave.
There's a cigar from the Hillary Clinton joke that he tells.
That's right. We got all this.
Well, it's kind of like
I just love the image that Tom has of himself, because again, he runs away from the whole Cum Town thing and tries to avoid that, but also embraces the fact that like he's a star. So it's like you can't have it both ways, Tommy.
the signs of it makes you a great artist is if you're not appreciated in your own time, which sucks, right? Like I want to be appreciated in my own time. I don't want people having a pilgrimage to my gravestone long after I'm dead, and I don't
think you got to worry about it, buddy.
I think you're good. I don't think this podcast has released a new episode in 2 years.
I love the way they speak of themselves.
A pilgrimage.
Yes, yeah, a pilgrimage. We're gonna go to Tom Myers and this Scottish guy's grave sites because can you imagine like your grandkids are doing that someday?
Oh yeah.
Well, Dad made fun of this comedian from Maryland. So we got to go down and see where he's buried.
Yeah, it's just like Dimebag Daryl and Tom Myers, same shit.
Yes, yeah, he has a dedicated audience.
to see that at all. So it's a double-edged sword if you get what you wish for.
It's like, yeah, you can't set up a merch table anymore. I'm like, what the fuck?
Can't sell your CDs. But no, I love it. And
Tough.
Was there any more of that, or was that it?
That was the last one. There was one more clip.
Oh, let's hear it.
I envision a future where high schools are taking trips to Tom Myers' gravestone during the DC trip.
Yeah. The tomb of the unknown soldier and Tom Myers.
Right.
It depends. Yeah, I had theatrical training in high school and college. So in addition to, being able to work without a microphone if need be, which I've had to do on occasion.
Yeah, Tom, because you play Italian restaurants.
You
play places that are not entertainment venues.
This just happened to Chris DiStefano, actually.
Is that right?
He went to do the owner. What's his name? The owner of the Mets. I forget his name, but he had a birthday.
Steve Cohen or something.
Yeah, he had a birthday party, and Chris DiStefano got hired to do his act there, and there was no microphone or nothing. And as soon as he started going, said, "I will triple your pay if you only do 10 minutes."
Do you think that it's the same thing Tom's talking about, where the Mets owner is calling him for a gig?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Or do you think maybe it's an Applebee's in Aberdeen, Maryland?
It might be that Applebee's. And he probably wasn't invited. He just started talking.
Election coming up. Everyone's like, what?
Please
Looking
leave.
up from their mozzarella sticks.
It's just the idea of like memorizing certain bits if they work on open mics, live or Zoom, then like, great, I'll go ahead and take it. Maybe I'll add on to it. Maybe I'll tweak it a little bit. So if I write,
is he just explaining comedy and joke writing to this guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
if I see something's working on an open mic Zoom show, I'm going to bring it on the road with me.
a joke like today. And if I try it like a year from now, it could be like completely different.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you really can't tell because you could be doing a joke a certain way and it does kind of okay. You're working on it. And then someone suggests.
And then one day, 5 people show up to the back of a show in Maryland and it crushes.
You're like, wow, they're not even here for that fan.
And you're like, oh man, I've really stumbled onto something. That's where Tom's writing process, I think, is fucked, is that people show up to his shows and like, Tom, you are a king, my man. Right. And he's like, oh, geez, I guess someday they're going to show up at my grave and leave Doritos in my honor.
Well, it's great we get to hear those acts worked out. You know, speaking of Mark Norman, you know, it's just like Mark Norman. You get to see it worked out on a podcast and then eventually taken to the stage. It's interesting Tom Myers kind of shares that same process, it sounds like.
That's right. Both, yeah, you get to peek behind the curtain.
That was the segue we could have used at the beginning there, David.
That's right.
This word to something, what she's this expression to that expression.
Mm.
And then it just goes gangbusters. It takes off. So
Gangbusters.
it just
Gangbusters.
depends on the joke. You never know.
And sometimes you find, like you're talking about changing that word, you maybe change it on stage while you're talking by mistake or subconsciously. And then, like you say, it gets a big laugh and you're like, oh, okay, I got to remember that. That's the joke.
This guy's just stretching out the pot. He's like, fuck, we've got 9 minutes in and I'm already done.
He's probably a victim of all the trolls being like, you have to have Tom Myers on to explain this joke.
Well, here's what I will say about Tom Myers. And this is an actual compliment, I guess. Is that like in his world with like G.D. Fenderson and Christine Knowlton and even like Dat Fan, Tom Myers is the draw. Like Tom Myers is swinging dick in that community. Now, what Tom doesn't realize is that's because of Come Town and WATP and shows like that talking about him that have made him a legend. He won't accept that. But he is like in those circles, he has closer to an audience than any of them do.
Yeah.
Like undoubtedly.
If another Tom shows up, they call him Big T.
That's right.
That was the end of it.
Okay, well, could go out on a whimper there, I guess. But yeah, I always love when we see Tom doing anything where it's kind of like a breakdown of the art form. Like that's hilarious to me. The idea that the creator of Make America Innate Again is giving you insight, like a peek behind the curtain into comedy, like Mark Maron.
No shit.
I like that he calls it he referred to it as Mecca, as if people are turning to right, they're facing Havre de Grace.
Yes, a pilgrimage to Havre de Grace, which is what we did, I guess.
I was gonna say, in his defense, that did happen.
We gotta oh, you know what? I'm realizing now. David Collins has to have. Oh, I guess you already tried, right, to get Tom Myers on your show.
I could follow through with it, but I feel like he's setting me up with a prank. I understand that Lisa person may not be a real human being.
Yeah, it's someone named Tom Myers under a
yeah, it's Tom Myers, but I think you got to go through with him, David.
He did tell me that he would look forward to working with me in the future, but he insisted that we go through this avenue.
I think you got to do it. I think Tom Myers would be a great David Collins 30-minute half-hour show guest.
Well, that's great. I think he'd be a great fan, just like I'm a fan of his.
Yes, I agree.
Hopefully he doesn't accuse me of stealing world news from him. I believe that's a common kind of opening style, but he does also do kind of that news joke format a lot, especially at the beginning of his show.
Yeah, but he's much more opinionated. You kind of give us the straight news. You're a real journalist, whereas Tom's more of a commentator, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, that will make him a great guest then.
Yes, I agree. I think that needs to happen.
Definitely.